DokiDoki is the most important threshold challenge to farm in Etheria Restart, especially at the beginning of your gameplay. As you're kicking off your journey in the game, there's nothing more important than getting to the point where you can farm DokiDoki Nightmare 3 or eventually much higher and get some very nice high rarity gear, and most importantly, some very powerful Swift Rush gear. Why is Swift Rush such a big frickin' deal? It's the speed set, and speed is king, speed is god. We're playing a turn-based RPG. Speed is everything. And I think in Etheria Restart, speed is everything more than almost any other game I've ever played. So getting to this point where you can farm, at a minimum, outstanding rarity gear, so this pinkish purplish one, eventually you'll get up to the mythic quality gear, but getting to the point where this is the minimum you're farming and you're getting speed drops is so important in this game. So in this video, I want to give you guys a guide on how I beat Nightmare 3. I just beat it earlier today. So far my run is 100%. I've done like 8 runs. I think it's a good example of how you can build a team comp when you don't have the perfectly meta units. You know, there's no Lily here, there's no real Mocha, there's no Rahu, but we're still gonna have a really nice controlled run. It's not the fastest run in the world, but it will allow you to beat Nightmare 3 and farm it consistently and get the ever important high rarity Swift Rush gear. The team you're going to see me use in this battle, and that will be featured in this guide, are the following anima. That is going to be Rosa, Heinrich, Freya, Sania, and Kazuyo the Reverie. However, I'm going to offer you alternatives for every single one of these units. They're all fulfilling roles, right? So I've got my 2 DPS in Rosa and Heinrich. However, they're also serving a debuffer role. Then I have my 2 supports. I've got my buffer and I've got my healer. And then I've got my crowd controller, the unit putting out some kind of crowd control element. And this is completely and utterly necessary in DokiDoki. Now, why is that? Well, if you look up top, Crazed Gathering, DokiDoki does not participate in combat directly, but summons different enemies to challenge the player. Now, this is the key point. These enemies have additional damage reduction. They are tanky as heck. This can temporarily be removed by inflicting control effects on them. So this could be Slumber, that's like a sleep effect. That is the crowd control that Kazuyo the Reverie is bringing, and I could not suggest her enough. She is fantastic. It could be a Deep Freeze, Frozen effect, like what Kraken does or what Mio does. It could be a Stun, like Real Mocha does. There's a lot of ways to do it, but you really need this, especially as you get higher and higher in DokiDoki, to overcome the very high levels of damage reduction. Especially if you're like me and you don't have super meta DPS. I'll tell you right off the bat, the best DPS for this in the game by a lot is going to be Real Mocha. You just heard me mention her as a crowd control unit. She puts out stuns, but additionally, she puts out huge damage. It is high multiplier single target damage, but if she gets a kill, it is 100% of that damage as an AoE. If she doesn't get the kill, it's 33%, but if you have a unit like that, that's awesome. But this guide is for people that don't. I'll talk about substitutions and how to build teams, including if you have very meta DPS like Real Mocha or maybe Rahu or Messiah, but I do want to focus on how to overcome not having those units and in general just how to build a good team comp. So let me actually exit the battle very quickly so I can show you the builds and prove to you that my gear is not very good, that my shells are not very good. I beat this just a few hours ago. I haven't changed anything. I saved all the gear. I saved all the shells that I used at that time. And I want to impress upon you, I have not done any extra farming in this game. Right now it is day 5. The game launched just 4.5 days ago, and I've put all my efforts into farming the investigation to get my units leveled up, and also progressing through the different missions and quests they give you in the game. So things like accomplishments, the hyperlink charter, so on and so on. By doing those things, by following the missions and doing the bare minimum, you actually end up with gear. Some of the quests and missions and hyperlink charters give you gear. You know, if you're doing something like the asynced echoes, they actually give you some decent gear drops there for free. So I say this to make the point, you can get good enough gear, you can get good enough modules that you can get decent builds that allow you to get to the point, Nightmare 3 and above, where you're getting minimum outstanding level gear and you didn't have to farm worse gear on your way there. So you're at a much more efficient use of your stability your whole way through. I basically dump everything into investigations unless I have to do something for a quest line. So you can see, let's start with my Heinrich. I'm gonna go really fast. If you wanna pause and look at the gear or the skill ups, be my guest. The only skill up to talk about here is his AoE, his S3. I've got this to level 4, so the potency, the ability of the skill is maxed out, but I do not have the skill cooldown reduced. This was plenty for me, and frankly, you could get the run to work with no skill ups into this. Let me show you his modules now. You can see not the highest quality gear. We got a couple outstanding pieces here on the left, but on the right, we've got a unique, then we've got an epic, then we got another outstanding. I'm just making do with what I have. You can see he's only at 47% crit rate. With Rosa's buff, that will be 77%, but he's still not crit capped. I ignored effect accuracy. You don't need it yet. You will see on Kazuyo the Reverie, I did put a lot of effect accuracy because we just can't have her missing. But for non-essential debuffs that you don't need landing every time, especially if it's on one of your DPSers, one of your damage dealers, I find you can get away with not doing it, at least up through Nightmare 3. In Hell, you're going to have to start caring about that stuff. But yeah, that's basically the build. Rosa, similar story, except we're making sure she's crit capped. If you don't know, Rosa puts out AoE crit rate boosts for all her allies, plus 30%. So for that reason, we only need her at 70% or higher. I didn't do very much crit damage. The rest just went into attack and speed. And if I go to Rosa's skill ups, nothing's skilled up. If we go to Sania now, she doesn't have any skill ups either. We look at her modules. I'm just looking for speed and HP and just trying to make the whole thing work. Next, we have got Freya. Again, she is not skilled up. If we look at the modules, it's the exact same story as Sania. We're looking for HP and speed. You don't need anything else. And finally, we have Kazuyo, the Reverie. I just call her the Reverie. And I did heavily invest in her S3. However, when I first cleared this, the first bunch of runs, and then since then I was just farming up her skill ups. Trust me, it's on stream if you want to go see on my Twitch, twitch.tv/Fastidious_GG. This skill was only at level 3. So just making sure I get that attack down at 65%. That's really good, so you take less damage, but also a key way she puts out her slumber crowd control effect is she lands it if the unit's already inflicted with attack down. So she does a triple hitter here, is a 65% chance to land the attack down with level 3 or higher, and what you want is hit 1 or hit 2 to land the attack down, so hit 2 and 3, depending on how it works out, has the chance, the 45% chance, to inflict slumber. And this is really key, because triggering that crowd control effect will give you that temporary window when they don't have the damage reduction, and you can actually kill the units. DokiDoki is like an AoE stage. You never actually fight against DokiDoki. She's summoning monsters, and you have to kill them. There's 2 waves of 5 each, and it's really important you get some crowd control consistently. She does it over here with her S3, and she also has a small chance on her S1. You're going to want her fast. You're going to want her tanky enough not to die. You can see I found the minimum here, and then you're going to want effect accuracy. On my original clears, I had her at about 97%. You'll see when you keep skilling her up through her prowess tree with her skill 3, she gets more effect accuracy. So it is 8 and then 12%. But you can see in my original clears when she was at level 3, I didn't yet have the additional 20. That 97 was plenty. I will say, original attempts at this comp, I had her at about 45% effect accuracy, and that was not enough. So I think you probably need her at least 80 or 90%. You can play around with it yourself, but you want this reliably landing the slumber. You already have to overcome the not 100% chance to land it, so you don't want another RNG check of did you have enough effect accuracy. Now let's quickly talk about shells and let's get right into the run. For Heinrich, the shell I've got over here is the Twilight Knight. This is definitely my favorite epic DPS shell. There's going to be quest lines where you have to max out level 40 in epic shell, so I suggest you make it the Twilight Knight for at least 1 or 2 of your DPSers. It's got 3 matrix of onslaught, 2 of battle will. That was enough. Then I'm getting the plus 12 onslaught effect of plus 45% attack, and I'm also getting the plus 4 battle will effect of plus 10%. Nothing here is that cool, nothing here is that meta, but it makes his attack high, which means we can deal some damage, especially once Kazuyo lands the slumber and removes those damage reductions. If we look at the shell effects, I've got some HP so he doesn't die. I actually found that really important for him. I got a lucky roll, some extra crit damage, and then a little damage boost for Disorder Anima, and he obviously is a purple guy. He's a dark unit. He's a Disorder Animus. Let's go to the shell now for Rosa. Same kind of story. This time it's triple Onslaught on the Matrix with triple Swift Rush. She's got a purple quality attack boost from overclocking. That is pretty good, plus 15%. She's got a little extra speed, 7 speed from the Shadow Dash, and then she's got the baby damage boost, the green version, for Odd Anima. She is an Odd Animus, right? She's a blue affinity hero, plus 2% damage. Better than nothing. I didn't want to keep re-rolling it. If we go to the module now, you'll see she gets the plus 12 onslaught effect, plus 45%, and then she gets the baby Swift Rush, the plus 4, 8% speed. It's enough. And I found it important that Rosa is a little faster than Heinrich. He can get away with being a little slower, even though he's a good DPS enabling debuffer. I found with Rosa, we just want to keep her moving. We want lots of hits. We want that S3 coming back around for the decreased speed. I'm going to go a lot faster now. For Sania, I was looking for speed here. The Bulwark was a little plus. This is a healer kind of shell. It's a solid one. It's nothing special. I don't so heavily recommend it. You can see we got the 12 boost of 35% speed from Swift Rush. We got the mini boost of Bulwark. That shell effect, nothing too cool. Flat HP, helps with the healing. Freya, we've got the Budo Panda. Definitely not a good shell effect for her, but this was just some old, unique rarity shell I had, and the key thing is it was plus 30 maxed out. That's 18 additional speed. Do not sleep on the flat stat contributions and the speed contributions that a shell can give you. So that is why she is wearing this. And you can see these are her effects here. It's just the Swift Rush, the plus 12 for the 35%. And finally, Kazuyo, she is in Shanghai Jing. I like this shell for her a lot. The turn meter boost is nice. You can get away with a lot less. It really doesn't matter. The key thing is the 2 matrices of Swift Rush. The Unbreakable is a nice plus for tankiness. So what I did, we did plus 12 with the Swift Rush. That's a plus 35% speed boost. And then we did the baby version, the plus 4 for Unbreakable. Take a little defense. I'm finding at these lower levels in the early game, defense for damage mitigation doesn't really matter. So if it's not a defense-based DPS, you can just go all in on HP. I'm almost certain that will change deeper on in the game, but right now, HP seems to be king for survivability. I also want to point out, guys, I think my units are fairly reasonably leveled. We got Rosa and Heinrich as the only 6 stars that I brought into the fight. They're both in the low 30s. I think when I originally cleared this, they were at 31 or 32. Now Heinrich's 33, Rosa's 32. You can see my Sania is 5 stars at about level 42. It was probably level 41 when I beat this. Freya is at level 28. And so is Kazuyo the Reverie. She's at 27. These guys are also 5 stars. I point out the level 27, level 28, because I found that to be the sweet spot where you're getting enough HP on both of them. Over 7k was kind of the number, 7k, 7.5k. I found level 20 or higher is when they started feeling tanky enough. But yeah, you don't need everyone at 6 star. You don't need everyone at level 50. You can get away with maybe 1 or 2 6 stars and then a bunch of 5 stars. Heck, honestly, for the lower levels, or if you had enough DPS, you could run someone like Kazuyo at 4 stars even. Depends on your build. All right, the preamble is done. Let's get into the battle. I'm going to do this as an auto battle, so you don't think it only works on manual, but I'm going to run it on like 2x speed, and then I'll interrupt it as I see fit. Probably we can throw it on 3x, and I can even just stop talking, and we can speed up the video towards the end once you understand the mechanics of everything that is happening. But let's go, guys. By the way, if you're enjoying this guide, if it's helping you, please make sure you subscribe to the channel. I'm covering Etheria Restart basically every day, several videos a week, and I'm streaming every single day right now on Twitch. Check out the links for that in the description, and I'll throw in the top pin comment too. Why not? So here's the comp, guys. Let's get into it. Let's throw it on 2x. We're getting some nice support from Freya, right? She's bringing debuffing, which is cool. We only land 1 nightmare debuff there, which is going to be some increased damage taken. She's also giving buffs to us. You know, I'm not getting into the specifics of everyone's kit, but here comes Kazuya, and actually now let's take it off. And you'll see she landed these slumbers. So we landed on the 4 units, 3 of them are under slumber. So why is this significant? Let's pause and let's go to the buff here and look at the enemy formation. You see this reconstruction icon, this little yellow buff debuff effect icon. When this effect expires, regain shell. What is shell? Shell is the increased damage reduction that the enemy units get that DokiDoki is giving them. When you land a crowd control effect, whether that be stun or slumber or freeze or something else, you are triggering reconstruction, which gives you 3 turns against them. It's total turns, not their turns, in which you can land actual damage against them. Sure, you can chip away. If you've got real Mocha, you're not really going to need anything. She hits so hard, right? But if you've got kind of a ragtag squad, like I'm using here, though they are really, really good anima, they're just not the perfect anima for this, you can make it happen because you're bringing someone like Kazuyo the Reverie, putting out the crowd control and triggering that. Let's keep going now. We can throw it on auto and 2x. So a big thing for me, if you don't have like a top tier DPS for a piece of content, in general, I like doing this, but for a piece of content, you want to bring a DPS that's bringing some other functionality. So some kind of support functionality or debuffing or both, right? So if we look at Rosa, she's not just, dealing damage. She's giving an AoE crit rate boost to everyone. She's putting out decreased speed. She's marking everyone. Let me show you now. Let's turn it off manual, or turn it on to manual, turn it off auto. She's marking everyone when she's able to. I don't have her passive maxed yet, but even with it unmaxed, she can do this. She's marking them with Bladeheart Bloom, which leads to the enemy taking 12% extra damage from all basic attacks from all of your allies. And on top of that, whenever that enemy wearing the debuff receives a crit, whether that be from Rosa or an ally, Rosa has a chance to run in there and do an ally attack. Rosa also has Turnimeter Manipulation on her S1, on her basic skill, so the whole thing works together perfectly. I do encourage you, if you're going to invest in Rosa, start with her skill 2, unless you really want the speed contributions from her skill 3. I would go skill 2, then skill 3. That's because you can max these out. She can start getting 100% chance to always land the Bladeheart Bloom, and then this goes up to 100% chance to always come with the ally attack, the follow-up attack. So I'm just keying in on Rosa because she's my favorite Animus, but also she's a great example of the kind of DPS you should be looking for in general in this game, but especially if you don't have the super meta DPS. If you have real Mocha, yes, she actually has a lot in her kit that helps with this fight, but the DPS is so big, it doesn't matter. I'm going to put it back on auto in a second. However, I wanted to point one thing out before we finish wave 1. It says 1 of 1, but then the real fight will start and it will be wave 2, the final wave. But I wanted to stop to make the point that if you're having trouble, I was having trouble for a lot of runs, and that's because I didn't have enough DPS to kill this first wave before Kazuyo came in again with her S3 with the AoE Slumber. You can see now we're going to get this kill. I'll throw it on auto, but imagine I didn't get the kill. Then Kazuyo would waste the Slumber on just 1 or 2 remaining enemies, and then I'd be starting the real fight, round 1, but actually the final round, where she had that on cooldown and she couldn't use it right away. But because of the way it worked out and the way I've tuned it now, you'll see in a second, we can actually throw this on 3x. When Kazuyo comes back around, I'm going to move myself to the corner. There you go. There's the S3. There's the Slumber, and we actually landed on all 5 units. So you can get away. You can get away with running her at her S3 at skill level 1. But I really suggest skill level 3 because it really increases the chances to land the Slumber because you're increasing the chances to land the decrease attack. By the way, how cool is it that she's also bringing decrease attack? It's hard to survive this fight. You can see my Heinrich was about to die. Sometimes he even does die and we still win the fight. We haven't lost it yet. But it is really key that you have a higher chance to land the decrease attack, so then in turn you have more hits after that to land the Slumber. It's a tough thing in Etheria because it's not many moves, not many debuffing moves or turn meter control moves end up going to 100%. At least not without a big skill investment. So you kind of have to optimize from that point. That's why you're going to want to get the effect accuracy high. You're going to want to get your team speedy, all that important stuff. But here you go. This is actually one of my cleaner runs. I think my fastest run so far was 3 minutes 30 seconds. Obviously, this is not a speed run. We don't have the real Mocha, anything cool like that. We don't have the Messiah to just knock these waves out of the park. But this looks like maybe my fastest. We'll find out in a second. Only 1 unit remaining. And you can see he's got that clock, that yellow clock there with no damage reduction still. Now there's 2 turns remaining. And we can really chip away at this guy. We put him back in Slumber again too. And there you go. This is pretty well controlled. If you're wondering what DokiDoki's even doing in this battle, I'll just tell you, she does this thing Spotlight Focus. She's picking one of her summoned monster enemies. Actually, now that I realize I keep throwing on 1x and stopping, my time's actually going to be a disaster. But she keeps throwing that Spotlight Focus on them, and that puts them in a crazy state and they mutate into a better monster. And after that point, once they've mutated, she does this frenzy thing, and basically she keeps boosting their attack. So you can't just tank this fight forever because they get stronger and stronger and stronger. That's why it's about having this balance between support, debuffing, and then the right amount of DPS. We can throw this on auto and just finish the battle. But you're going to see, I'm going to give you suggestions, alternatives for all these roles. And hey, wouldn't you know, we still got 2 minutes, 47 seconds. So that's actually my best run, but it's still only a 1-star run. I've not even gotten a 2-star run yet. But, you know, run it 5 runs at a time, chip away at it on your side computer or monitor on your phone throughout the day, and you'll be happy you did, because you're going to get outstanding rarity gear. You can no longer get epic rarity gear when you're at Nightmare 3 or above. And starting with Hell, which is going to be my next challenge, my next hellish thing to take on, that's when you get the opportunity not just to get outstanding, but of course mythic, which is a whole nother level, and they introduce some really special sets. But I think to wrap up this video, I think you get the point. Let me just hop into the archive and very quickly give you alternatives for who you can swap in based on who you have on your roster. Who can you bring into this fight to succeed on your specific account? Because that's what matters the most, right, guys? So right off the bat, just for the strongest DPS possible, Real Mocha is the best. She has got crazy multipliers, this huge single target move here. However, she does splash damage with it. So based on the total damage, she will do 1/3 of that as AoE splash damage. But if you get a kill, and she will get kills, she's going to snipe single target kills, that splash damage becomes 100%. She also has opportunity for stuns. She has extra damage. She can recover her health. She is just phenomenal. She drops speed. She is perfect. It's very likely I'm going to pick her as my selector based on how my roster is shaken out. She's phenomenal for this. And if you want to go high into Hell and hopefully eventually Inferno, the highest difficulty in DokiDoki, you kind of can't beat this candy koala squirrel monkey girl, whatever she is. She's crazy. The next best DPS, though it takes a lot longer from this affinity, from the hollow green affinity, is going to be Rahu. He's super tanky. He puts out defense break. He's got ally attacks all the time. There's a lot of cool stuff in this kit. He hits very hard. He buffs himself and all allies with the defense increase, which also buffs his damage because his damage is based on defense. He is freaking phenomenal. You could argue more broadly, maybe he's better than Real Mocha, but the runs are going to be slow. He's more of like a long battle, PvP, boss kind of guy, but he is phenomenal. So he's definitely a DPS unit here to keep in mind for this fight. Moving away now from the hollow affinity, going to the constant affinity, aka the light units, we've got Messiah. Messiah doesn't do much in the debuffing support department. He does put out a little bit of vulnerability, which is cool. He does give himself invincibility, which can be very cool and save some runs and effectively make him very tanky. But the key thing is he's ignoring defense. He's hitting like a truck. He's a neutral affinity, so he can just lay waste. That is a great DPS. If you're bringing Rahu or Real Mocha or Messiah, certainly up through Nightmare 3 and even like Hell 1, Hell 2, you can get away with solo DPSing it. With Real Mocha, you can continue to solo DPS it. And because of that, you can just lean heavily into 2 debuffers. Maybe one of them has some supporty stuff in there. Then you got your crowd control unit and a healer. Something like that. So the really high-end DPS enable that, but if you're like me and you don't have them, you got to look for other options. So very likely you'll want to run 2 DPS, and you're going to want them to have some extra support or debuffing or both. So to shout out a few more, Shadow Sonya can be really good, but you need other dots to work with her. So you can bring someone like Obal right behind me, or you can bring Fangus wherever he's hiding, or maybe you could bring both. Where the frick is Fangus? There's Fangus, though I will say he's going to fall off a cliff because he's the wrong affinity, but you know, you can make that work. That's more down the road kind of stuff, but don't sleep too hard on Shadow Sonya, because once you have good gear, once you have the right comps, the dot explosion stuff can lead to very good, very fast runs. The final ones I'm going to want to point out for DPS that I haven't talked about yet are going to be Lilith. Lilith does max HP DPS and some other cool stuff. She's not that great, but she's a great affinity and could be a really strong second DPS if you've got her. Jada is okay, but I don't think I'd overly invest in her just specifically for this content. Borgny, kind of the same story. All of these can be alternatives. And then I want to give a shout out to a couple SRs. D-Ting is unbelievable. Yes, it's single target, but he might be the best single target in the game for a lot of things, especially if he's your second DPS. That is crazy. And then we've got Gray. This will be a nice transition into the discussion of debuffers, but if you need more DPS, you could build Gray as a hybrid, as a debuffer and a DPS. He has very high base attack, over 1,000 base attack. Really, really good for an SR. Definitely something to keep in mind. And then obviously he has the crit rate boost, very nice support skill, just like what Rosa has. And then he has a crazy uptime on his AoE decreased defense. With skill ups, this goes down to a 3-turn cooldown, but because of the extra turn mechanic, it is effectively a 2-turn cooldown, and it has a 100% chance to land. That is crazy strong. So he's someone you can lean into as a debuffer and a DPS. For a lot of people, though, he might just be a debuffer. So let's talk about other debuffers now. If we go up here, one of the absolute strongest in the game is going to be Kloss. I will say, if you don't have a ton of DPS and the fight isn't moving quickly, Kloss isn't as good as someone like Gray early on for these longer battles, because this over here is a 4-turn cooldown. Yes, she's got a lot of cool things that can speed her up, slow the other team down. She will still be very strong, but you might not see the same uptime on the defense break as with Gray. But if you got a lot of DPS, the fight's moving quickly, and eventually if you start skilling her up, she is unbelievably good. I slept on Kloss for way too long because I never pulled her. There's so much to unpack here. I can do a whole guide on her if you want, but she's pretty freaking phenomenal. One of the best debuffers in the game for this fight, and as a hollow affinity unit, she's the perfect affinity. To go now to the SR units, a very obvious debuffer to point out is Marvel. He's going to do a lot of turn meter control. He's going to silence the enemy units so they can only use their S1, their basic skill. He's going to steal turn meter, and then finally, the decreased speed, the decreased res, and the big turn meter drop. This is one of the best skills in the game, regardless of Animus rarity. Very cool how he controls the turn meter by dropping it, drops the speed as well, but then dropping the resistance. This makes it so you don't have to overinvest and affect accuracy onto your DPS, right? So I definitely could see myself moving to Marvel as I get to higher levels of difficulty, and I want to make sure that like my Rosa actually is landing the decreased speed, or more likely I might take Rosa out of this comp as I get deeper. Maybe I want to make sure my Heinrich is landing the last words and the wound and the block and all that stuff. So that decreased resistance is really, really good. I mean, Marvel's excellent for this. He's really good, especially if you don't need as much DPS. So if you've got like a real Mocha, this is a great extra debuffer to bring. Moving on now to supports, we have our very obvious ones: DokiDoki, crazy, Lily, phenomenal. You know, I already shouted out Freya. She's just excellent for this. But if we want to move to our SR units and give some non-super rare, super strong units a little love, Chalky the Echo is insanely good for this. Very strong affinity. She puts out the really unique Ave Maria buff. This leads to the end of every ally's turn when they're wearing this buff becoming a turn meter boost, which is awesome. She has a big turn meter boost over here that she gives on the S3. She gives attack boost to everyone. The whole thing is very, very strong. She can do a little cleansing as well to make sure your runs are cleaner. She is phenomenally good for this. You'll see her on some of the fastest runs at the highest difficulties of DokiDoki. Now let's go to healing. Sania is kind of a no-brainer. You're going to see her in so many comps, but you can absolutely make Valerian work. And then if we're talking about SSRs, Ling Luo is really good. She's a neutral affinity for this, as she's also Reason blue affinity, just like the DokiDoki fight. She's got a lot of cleansing too. We all get Ling Luo on day 7. So if you're watching this video and you've already got your free Ling Luo from the 7-day quest line, feel free to throw her in. She's really good. Also, sorry, while I'm here, Tsukiyomi, very good support. Again, neutral affinity. She's bringing speed up. She's bringing attack boost. She's bringing a huge turn meter boost to one of your allies. She brings a cooldown decrease. There's a lot of great support in there. Finally, now let's talk about the crowd control units. To talk about SSR units, Mio is just crazy. This S2 over here, the 40% chance to apply freeze for 1 turn. Only a 3-turn cooldown once you skill it up. Very, very strong, very reliable. Though I would encourage a lot of people to use some SR units because they can do even better and they're easier to skill up. Mio is amazing in PvP and can certainly work here, but if we want to give some SR units love besides Kazuyo the Reverie, the other option I want to shout out is Kraken. Kraken is really good at freezing as well. 4-turn cooldown here if you skill him up. Yeah, not as good as Mio, but effectively they'll be at the same level. He brings a lot of other really, really good things as well. Another opportunity here on the S2 for a 1-turn deep frozen. This is a special freeze, and this has a 70% chance with skill ups. He also has defense break. He's a really good option here. Though I do think Kazuyo the Reverie is the queen for a reason. You're going to see her in so many clears. She's just too good at this with her slumber. All right, guys, if I missed anyone, let me know. And if you're new to the channel, welcome. Again, make sure you subscribe to the channel. I know I make long guides, but I like diving deep. I like living up to my name and doing things in a fastidious way. I get down in the nitty-gritty. I get down in the details. So if you like this kind of stuff, definitely check it out. Join us here on the channel. That's all I got for you. Thank you so much for watching. Share with your mother, and I'll see you real soon. Bye.
Fastidious.